Hello and welcome to DM Neurology Made Easy. This is the 18th module of Fine Neurophilia Quick Revision series. Let's hear the headache part 1 video. Today we are dealing with the topic of headache. Make best use of this freely available platform where you can easily learn and study all the MCQ oriented questions and get acquainted with the questions as such, which most probably will be asked in your future entrance exam. Make use of these freely available platform of videos, this series of videos in the YouTube platform. And in this difficult times, I know it's very hard to keep your concentration on. So I'll start with this. So everything will happen the way it has to happen. So everything you are stressing or dreaming about will eventually fall into your place. And eventually you will be guided and protected, especially by God Almighty or all your parents or your belief itself. So there is nothing to worry about. Just be present, give your best, and make most of your opportunities. And then all would be well. So with that, we'll go into the topic proper. So headache means actually pain limited above your shoulders, above the head and neck region. So the first question dealing, there's lots of questions would be coming from this region, which deals with the pathophysiology of pain in that region. That is basically the head region. So this is a repeat question which was asked previously in one NEET exam. Answer is choroid plexus. So I thought some people would answer dural sheath. This is the second question. So basically, we have to understand that the brain, including the parenchyma and its covering, I remember it as brain pad, PAD, pia mater, arachnoid matter, dura mater. All these three are pain insensitive. Even the dura mater is pain insensitive, especially dura mater covering the convexity region. But the dura mater, which is covering the base of skull as well as covering that large vessel region, are sensitive to pain. So if a question is asked whether dura mater is sensitive to pain, yes, it is. But if you look at this dura mater region or this convex region across your parietal region across the skull, beneath the skull, that region is less sensitive to pain or insensitive to pain. That is the thought process. So this was what I was talking about. So you have the brain, the pia mater, dura mater, and the arachnoid mater. So pia mater is the closest part. All these three are thought to be insensitive to pain, except that dura mater, which is sensitive at the base of skull region, as well as those regions which are covering the large arteries are sensitive to the brain. So patient coming with the history of coconut fall on the head and thinking that the head pain had started after this fall, you shouldn't think that it is due to the injury inside. All the structures outside the skull are sensitive to the pain, are pain sensitive. And this was what I was talking about. So meninges has the dura mater, arachnoid mater, and the pia mater, of which all are insensitive to pain, except there is a difference in case of dura mater. And this is the pain, it's an insensitive structures. You have to be thorough with it because during the exam, you shouldn't be confused and you shouldn't be wasting time on this. And sensitive areas are falx cerebri, dura around the sinuses and vessels, and arteries at the base of the skull, and cranial venous sinuses. So specifically, these will be the pain insensitive structures, and of which definitely that parenchyma, ependyma, choroid plexus, and all the three layers, except dura mater, will at specific regions will be pain sensitive. And also, you should know that these nerves are specifically involved in the pain associated with the head region. That's why all these primary headaches have been attributed to that pathophysiology has been told as trigeminal-vascular pathology of pain or trigeminal-vascular theory of pain. So which one of the following is the most common cause of headache? Headaches are divided into primary and the secondary headaches. So the primary headaches doesn't have any underlying cause and the secondary has a cause of its own. Most common type of headache itself is actually a tension type headache. And of the primary headache, definitely it's the tension type headache. Then comes the migraine headache. And this is the table from Harrison. which shows that it is the most common, and migraine just is actually 16%, which was taken from a study. And of the infections, actually systemic infections resulting in headache will be having the most common, which will be the most common etiology for headaches rather than the traumatic ones. So tension type headaches affects over 1/3 of the population of men and over 1/2 of women. And migraine is also very common, affecting 1 in every 7 in the world. And if you see, the active prevalence of tension type headache is about 40%, and the migraine is about 10%. And as we know, we should identify which are the primary headaches, because they are less harmful. Primary ones are the less harmful one. And we have to check whether the secondary headaches could cause harm to us. So it is very essential to identify this primary and differentiate it from the secondary. So all among the following are primary headache syndromes, are included under primary headache syndromes, except, so primary headaches, basically more commonly they are divided in as migraine headaches, tension type headaches, and the trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias, as well as the other types of headaches or the rarer ones. Trigeminal neuralgia is actually not classified as a primary headache. It is considered as a cranial nerve type of pain, cranial neuralgic type of pain. So primary headaches has the differences. It has no underlying cause, and it is most common. And you should identify, the importance of identification is that it is not life threatening. And the most common ones are, as already described, migraine, tension type, and the trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. And secondary headaches are the result of an underlying cause, which is just 10%. But this 10% is very important to identify, because it could underlie a life-threatening condition. It's like it could follow a trauma, follow systemic infections, which is the most common one, follow very severe life-threatening conditions like subarachnoid hemorrhage, aneurysm, a bleed, infarct, or even reversible cerebral vasoconstriction syndrome. Some rare varieties like the primary cough headache, or the primary thunderclap headache, primary sex headache, primary exercise headache, etc. And the secondary ones also you have to remember, like depending on the pressure, whether the pressure increases within the brain, there can be intracranial hypertension or intracranial hypotension. And as I told you earlier, this trigeminal neuralgia, glossopharyngeal neuralgia, etc. are classified as painful cranial neuropathies. So any patients, this is for your clinical, clinical, increasing your clinical acumen. So any patient you see in case of coming with a headache, you have to ask all this symptoms, all this history, that is aggravating time of onset, number, frequency, aggravating relieving factors, how it has affected his day-to-day activities, whether he is going to work, and how it has progressed, whether it is usually associated with all these features, whether it is having a premonitory symptom, whether it is followed by an aura, whether it has got severe headache features, and whether it is having a post-draw. And in between this ictus, that is the interictal period, how is he? Whether he is perfectly normal or still he has a background of headache. These are very important. The importance of identifying it is that this helps in classifying the headache, because as we know, that clusters, that is the cluster type of headache, which is a type of trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia. So that name itself says that there will be a lot of autonomic symptoms, that there will be conjunctival injection, that is redness of the eyes, there will be lacrimation, there will be meiosis, that is the corners-like appearance, that is, and there will be severe pain around the eyes, and it will be like sharp kind of pain which comes and stays for about 15 to 180 minutes, then comes at a particular period of day, and then goes back again to appear at a particular period of day, and again to go back. That kind of history, if you ask, you can definitely diagnose a cluster headache without any confusion. But if you just think that every headache is a migraine, you won't be able to treat a cluster, because drugs which are used in migraine, like sumatriptan or anything, won't be useful in case of a cluster headache, because acute cluster headache needs to be treated in a different way. So tension type headache is just like somebody squeezing over your head, somebody squeezing over your head, and it will be having a featureless quality. It doesn't have it because, as I told before, cluster have all these features, and tension type headache won't be having any of these features. And definitely you must by now would have known all the features of migraine. That is laterality with changing features. It could become bilateral. It will be associated with phonophobia, photophobia, nausea, vomiting, etc., lasting 4 to 72 hours. All these features will be there. And if they lack all these features, and has a squeezing like headache, then it will fall under tension type headache. So even though it just constitutes 10% of the headaches, it's important to identify whether it's a secondary headache. So American Headache Society themselves have come up with a mnemonic to identify secondary headaches. That is to see whether the patient has got systemic symptoms, whether the headache was associated with fever, weight loss, the systemic diseases like the HIV infection or malignancy, neurological symptoms, whether the patient had a headache and had an associated transient ischemic attack, had a weakness with facial deviation. Was it associated with a sudden thunderclap headache? The thunderclap headache is the headache, worst ever headache, which had its maximum intensity within 1 minute. That is the definition for a thunderclap headache, 1 minute. And onset, it varies. They have given us 40 years for American by Headache Society. It could be even 40, above 40. So that suggests some headaches which comes above 40. For example, some malignancies, or even case of giant cell arteritis. That kind of headaches comes above 40 years. And so this mnemonic helps us to identify whether this headache is due to a secondary cause. Papilledema suggests that there is a cause, there will be a reason for a raised intracranial tension, and you have to work up for that. And recent change in nature of the headache and precipitation by various factors, for example, Valsalva manner, as in case of raised ICT, similarly, all are very important. That is the importance of identification, primary versus secondary headache. So in the question, some were answering it as nummular headache. So nummular headache is considered to be a primary headache. That is a chronic primary headache. And it is actually nummular, the word meaning itself, it shows that it's a coin-shaped headache. And the diagnostic criteria is its elliptical area about 2 to 6 centimeter in diameter, chronic, and it occurs at a specific area every time. That is the nature of that nummular headache. So it comes under nummular headache is included under a primary headache. And as we have discussed, trigeminal neuralgia is not. Key structures involved in primary headaches include all except. For the upcoming NEET exam, your basic Bible would be Harrison textbook. So even from that small less than 5 pages, all these kinds of each and every pathophysiology treatment part of most of the headaches are covered in short paragraphs. So first option is dura mater and peripheral terminals of the trigeminal nerve are involved. Cranial portion of the trigeminal nucleus is involved in primary headache pathophysiology, and rostral pain processing regions such as VPM, thalamus, nucleus of thalamus and cortex are involved, and pain modulatory systems in brain that modulate input from trigeminal nociceptors are also involved. Whether the change in that causes aura, that sensitivity to that pain modulatory systems causes severity of headache and cause of aura. The wrong answer is actually not the cranial portion of the trigeminal nucleus. It is actually the caudal portion. If you see, these are the peripheral regions concerned with pain processing, which receives the pain, and then it comes into the trigeminal nucleus caudalis, not the cranialis. Then it comes to the thalamus, and then to the primary somatosensory cortex. Then it has got associated connections to even hypothalamus and also to locus ceruleus. Hypothalamus and also to locus ceruleus. So these are the various pathophysiology of migraine. So the peripheral process and the central processes play a very important role, and you have to know all this peripheral and central processes, and all the the CGRP molecules and other molecules act at various levels of these peripheral and central processes to cause intensity and variations in these primary headache pathophysiology. And that is why we give these CGRP molecules, triptans, dopamine receptor antagonist, etc. for these patients. Select the wrong statement regarding migraine, preceded by a premonitory or a prodromal phase, and then comes aura. Aura is not present in all patients. That is why the migraine is divided as migraine with aura and without aura. About 20 to 25% of patients have of migraine have has associated aura, but rest may not have aura with them. And then is the ictal phase or the headache phase, which is followed by the prodromal phase. And then also there is another phase called interictal phase for migraine. The zigzag lanes are the fortification spectra we speak of, and neck discomfort and difficulty in concentration are part of the postdrome, definitely are a part of a postdrome. And what is the definition of chronic migraine? That is something different and not as given below. So chronic migraine is defined as having at least 15 headache days a month, with at least 8 days of having headache with features of migraine for more than 3 months. So don't confuse this 15 days of headache may be having migraine as well as the other quality like tension type quality of headache, of which 8 days will be having typical migraine features as we have discussed: the phonophobia, photophobia, the laterality, nausea, vomiting, the typical migraine features. And this should be present for 3 consecutive months. Then we term it as a chronic migraine. And the treatment for chronic migraine is a bit different from that of the usual episodic migraine. So as we had told, the 4 phases of migraine headache are different. The prodrome is actually extending from days to from hours to days actually, and the patient would be having severe problem in concentrating, irritability, trouble sleeping, having excessive amounts of yawning and food cravings, etc. Patient will be irritable. This will be followed by the auras we speak of, that is the bright flashing dots, the blind spot in the vision, numbness or tingling sensation, even the tinnitus, temporary vision loss, and the fortification spectra like thing. Even the smell can be varied. Then comes the headache phase where the patient would be having the typical migraine features. Then the postdrome where the patient will be having depression, fatigue, and difficulty in concentration. So these are the 4 phases of migraine. And how do you assess the patient with migraine? What is the questionnaire used in migraine assessment? What do you think is the questionnaire used in migraine assessment? Is it the ROM questionnaire, MOCA, MEDAS, or the Barthel questionnaire? Yes. So what do you think is a ROM questionnaire used for? ROM questionnaire is used for irritable bowel syndrome. MOCA is for cognition. Barthel index is for stroke. So MEDAS questionnaire is the one which is used for migraine. So this has been given in Harrison, the MEDAS questionnaire. And you should understand that another question could be asked: how long? So you are asking a history of a patient with migraine. So you should understand that you have to have a history which should be lasting at least 3 months. So 3 months history you should ask regarding migraine. So you should understand the first visit you may not be able to get all the history. So you definitely have to maybe ask the next time again and again for this history. The questionnaire extends up to 3 months history. So that also you have to keep in mind. Which of the following statements is false? So this is regarding treatment of migraine. So what do you know about the treatment of migraine? So you are familiar with the triptans. There is something called ditans, and also newer treatment modalities are there. So as I told you, there are 4 phases: prodromal phase, aura, the headache phase, and also the postdrome phase. The prodromal phase is caused by the hypothalamic activation, and the aura is due to the cortical spreading depolarization, or it is actually something called cortical spreading depolarization, which starts the aura and the headache. And the hypothalamic activation causes the premonitory phase or the migraine phase. About 80% of people with migraine will be having this prodromal phase of migraine. And aura is, as I already told you, it will be present only in about 20 to 25% of patients with migraine. But premonitory phase or the prodromal phase, where the patient will be having increased yawning or food cravings, will be present in mostly 80% of patients with migraine. And dietans are actually specific molecules which has specific like dietans acts on 5-HT. All the triptans acts on 5-HT. Actually, triptans like sumatriptan, zolmitriptan, naratriptan, etc. acts on 5-HT. And they have specific activity on 5-HT. 5-HT is divided into 5-HT based on the alphabet. 5-HT, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, etc. up to multiple numbers. So basic specificity is for 5-HT1B and 5-HT1D. So triptans basically are more acting on 5-HT1B, 1D, and 1F. And if there is more activity towards 1F, that is actually the activity of dietans. Then we call it as dietans. The triptans were designed to stimulate selectively subpopulations of 5-HT receptors. Are potent agonists of 5-HT1B, 1D, and some are active at 5-HT1F. Exclusive agonists of 5-HT1F receptors are called dietans. And these triptans arrest the signaling of the pathway, the pain pathway of the trigeminal system. As I told you before, the trigeminal system is the cause for the pain pathophysiology, at least in the trigeminal nucleus caudalis and the thalamus. In addition to the promoting of cranial vasoconstriction, while dietans now show conclusively to be effective in acute migraine, act only at the neural and not at the vascular targets. So that was the wrong option here. Dietans acts only at the neural targets and not at the vascular targets. That is the wrong answer. So there is a specific entity of genetic migraine which is associated with mutation weakness that are called the familial hemiplegic migraines. Most common mutation found in familial hemiplegic migraine is due to which one of the following? Remember this as CAN, C-A-N, CAN. I'll tell you later with the next question. So the most common mutation found in familial hemiplegic migraine is actually calcium gene mutation, and that is present in about 50%. Match this. So calcium, sodium ATPase, ATP gene, then comes the sodium. Then there is a fourth variety which has Q arm of chromosome 1 mutation. So you can remember as CAN, this can cause migraine. It's not just hemiplegia alone. So remember like that.